I am Thelma Vernell Anderson Gibson. I was born right here in Coconut Grove, Florida, delivered by a midwife by the name of Caroline Knowles. And she delivered two other babies on that same morning, Francis Summons and Thomas White, and then Thelma Anderson. But I spent all of my childhood at 3382 Charles Avenue here in Coconut Grove. And so exactly where I was born, I don't know exactly what house, but I know where I spent all my childhood from the time I could remember. I was on at 3382 Charles Avenue and stayed there until my early adult life. I even went away to school and came back and stayed in that same little house there on Charles Avenue. My grandparents came from the Bahamas. My father was born here right at 3326 Charles Avenue back in 1903. And my mother was born in Key West, June 17th of 1902. So we have been around as a family from the Bahamas for many years, and I watched this area grow. This particular section was dug out by Bahamians, and most of the people who came here lived in this area. And then they sent a workforce over here from the Bahamas who helped do that. And so one of the things I've been about helping, trying to save some of this for the community because of the Bahamian background. It's been a struggle because with all this gentrification that's come in, and there are very few people of color left around, and especially Bahamians. Well, I came up at a time when this was called Color Town. We had Color Town and White Town. And Color Town on this section from Grand Avenue south to Mahler, from Main Highway to Douglas Road primarily, was Color Town. And so we knew colored people went. There were certain places we couldn't go in some of the stores in White Town. My papa was a light-skinned man with curly hair, and he could go into all these places, and his little colored children would be out there outside waiting. I never shall forget. And Papa used to go in and come out with the ice cream for his colored children who were waiting outside. And we laugh and say, oh, they don't know Papa's colored. So it was really one of those things where we were separated and definitely not equal in the days that I was coming along. And I was a brownie and then a Girl Scout. And we used to sell Girl Scout cookies. Now, when we sold Girl Scout cookies, they were only 25 cents a box. And I shall never forget, my mama worked for Father Sofa, who was up the priest at St. Stephen's Church. And I'd sit out there and I'd sell more cookies than anybody. Oh, the white folk would buy cookies from me. And it was amazing because I'd smile and thank them and give them the right change and all that. And they were just surprised that this little colored girl could sit up there in White Town and do what she was doing. But I had this kind of a feeling that people would do for you if you give them a smile and say thank you. And it was the one time, though, that you could sort of mix with white and colored girls. When we went to some of the outings that they had, there would be white girls there as well as the colored troops. And we got along very well. Of course, even though we couldn't eat at the same counters, couldn't eat at the lunch counters or any of that together, but we took our lunch and we ate on the grounds of wherever it was that we were having one of our meetings or social gatherings. Because Coconut Grove primarily had individual houses, even though we didn't have all these apartment buildings. I went away to school in 1944, and when I came back in 1947, I was surprised to see all the apartment buildings that had come up on Grand Avenue. I was 20 years old when I finished nursing school, and it was amazing that things were still the same. So it was an exciting time coming up in spite of the fact that we were not among the well-to-do people. We were colored, living in our little section, but enjoying it and getting an education along the way. I came home in August of 1947 with my little letter in hand, go to Jackson and get to the desk. And I said, I'm Thelma Anderson, and I've been hired to work in the operating room. Here's my letter of acceptance. Well, that lady sat there and she looked at me. It must have taken her 10 minutes to get herself together to let me know that I couldn't work in the operating room. And I said, why? And they said, well, there are no coloreds work in the operating room now, but if you'd work on the colored floors, the day will come when you may be able to work in the operating room. And I said, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. So I decided I wasn't going to take that job. And Mama said, girl, you got to work. You can't sit around here and not do something. You got this little bit of education. Now you got to find a job. I went to Jackson, and I went to work on the colored floors. It was really interesting. I really learned a lot. But they call black nurse, colored nurses, Nurse Anderson or Nurse Smith or Nurse Curry or Nurse whoever. Also, I said, oh, I'm Miss Anderson. They said, oh, nurse, I'm sorry. We don't call the colored nurses Miss. They all call nurse. I said, oh, but you call the white nurses Miss. So I had this chip on my shoulder. And I've been Miss Anderson since I was 18. So now I'm not going to turn to nurse. And all the colored nurses would look at me and say, girl, you're a nurse. Why can't you don't just be settled? I said, because that's not what I've been called these 3 years. And I've been called Miss Anderson. So I said, well, you can call me what you want, but I'm Miss Anderson. Well, I guess while I was on the Public Health Trust, I was able to help some things take place that would not have taken place if I had not have been a part of that. I worked there from 1947 to 49, and then from 51 to 55. And so I had actually 6 years that I was a nurse there, and I never got to work in the operating room. And I have people who say to me, aren't you glad you didn't work in the operating room? Said if you had been in the operating room, that's probably the only job you would have ever had. And you would not have been able to get out here and do the other things that you're doing. So it may be a blessing that you didn't get an opportunity to work in the operating room. And so I had to look at it that way. So we wanted to start a school. And through friends who helped us get the Gibson Memorial Fund off the ground and to raise the money to do that. And fortunately, we were able to get the school started. Even though it was a charter school and not a regular public school, we have a charter school that's going. And so helping to educate young people was important to us, and especially to me because I understand the importance of an education. But the kinds of things that we wanted to do and we were able to accomplish was we bought the land. When I said to the board, somebody's house is for sale or something, and we could buy this. And they allowed me, as the president of the Gibson Memorial Fund, to go throughout the community and say to people, when you get ready to sell, give us the first opportunity to purchase. This is how we were able to accumulate the property that we had on Grand Avenue. And people were saying, Thelma Gibson buying up everything. I said, no, it's not for me. I said, it's for the community. So we had land there on Grand Avenue that we still own, by the way. We leased it now to Urban Core, where they plan to do some affordable housing and some businesses, commercial and affordable and workforce housing on that land. So it's the kind of things that we were able to get accomplished through the Thelma Gibson Memorial Fund and through BITCO, which is a group that I started in GUTS. And so I'm happy that something's happening that gives us a chance to still be here. And with the Thelma Gibson Health Initiative, I said we own the land on and that was from a grant from Don Spar that they gave us, and we were able to buy that house and the 2 duplexes there and house some of the clients that we work with. And so these are the things I'm proud that we were able to accomplish. So I've been fortunate. I was appointed to the Miami City Commission for a couple of months and served there and was able to get some things done for people in the city that needed to be done, and was proud of some of the things in those 4 months that I was able to do. But I did not want to be a politician. That's not my thing, really. But I didn't mind doing it for a short time just because I knew I could help make change take place in a few things during that period. And so that's been pretty much the life of Thelma Gibson. I've done some things that I shouldn't have done. And, I know I wasn't the best person in the world to get along with. And yet I was good. I'd smile. In spite of whatever they did to me, I would always give them a smile and say thank you and be able to get along. And I say to young people today, you can make it if you don't mind working. You got to work for it. Nobody's going to give it to you. You got to work for it.